everybody. My name is Emma and welcome to Tea Time Tuesday. Oh my God. It's warm, but it's not that warm. I'm taking the time right now just to do this now because I have two grandkids who are still sleeping. And I said, you know what, I think I better use the time and just, and do it right now. Then I could worry about them when they get up. And then I can cook them breakfast or whatever, and then start the day with them. So, got a few things done already. I am learning a lot from a study book guide that I'm doing, and trying to implement the lessons that I'm learning. And so far, they're kind of working out okay. And for one, I was supposed to be calling people so that I can engage with them more on a frequent level or time. But I just found it funny that the day I decided to call people, nobody was home. I was like, really? Really? I got hold of one person, and luckily she answered, and we did spend a little bit of quality time just talking, and then I was able to talk to my sister-in-law today, and we spent some more quality time, sharing what's been going on in our family. So that was very, very nice. I do have 1, 2, 3 more people that I have to call today, and hopefully they'll be home. But if they're not, I'll just keep trying until I get a hold of them. So anyway, here we go. Here's our tea, and this one is raspberry. It's not the true blue berry that I usually like drinking, so I'm just kind of like switching it up. And I just have a little bit of, they're little crackers. They're little crackers, you can see they're crackers, and they just have some marshmallow on top. Let me see if I can back up a little because I don't think you can see my table that well of what I have here. Okay, so have my tea, and again, you don't have to be perfect when you're doing your tea because it's just you, and sometimes a lot of people just like to have a cup of tea and just read a book, or these days it's not even reading a book, it's sometimes just scrolling on your phone and looking at reels, or looking up stuff. And most likely I could just see people looking at Amazon, Temu, all those things. So let me take a real quick sip of this. My puppy's like, she's talking again. He has been a really, really trooper. He's really active today. So I think he's been up ever since 4:30 in the morning. So he's been active, running. I've been playing with him. I took him out. We fed him. He was blessed with some chicken wings, and he still has more, and he hasn't finished them. But maybe he'll eat them later. I don't know. I always have to watch what I feed him because I just don't want him to get sick. And I don't like, him when he goes, when he has to do his, bathroom time, that it's not, that he's well. I did take him out on his walk this morning, so he's good with that. I'll be taking him out another one at 6 o'clock. But enough of the doggy. So, guess what I did? So I finally finished Gambling on the Duke's Daughter. And I was last night, and I was like, I gotta read because I want to do Tea Time Tuesday, and I don't want to read late at night because I'll just end up like reading a chapter and I'll fall asleep and I'll be like this, and then all of a sudden this falls right on my head. So I'm not reading late no more. At the latest, I think I'll read this maybe like at 9 o'clock, so I could make sure that I could get at least an hour in of reading time. If not a few days out of the week, at least the night before. So, okay, so here we are, finally finished it. So let me give you a little back history of what the book was about. So we had Dylan Blake and we had Natalia. And Natalia was the Duke's daughter, of course. And Dylan had, they were called the Blake brothers. Dylan had a brother named Michael, and of course their father, the general, I think it was, the general, or was Natalia's father the general? I think Natalia's father was the general. Okay. Or the Duke, for that matter. And so Dylan was he was kind of like a womanizer, going around town and, and seeing who he can make, bets with. And he had a sidekick. His name was Jonathan. And they were always, making bets. Oh, I bet you can't get this girl, or I bet you can't coax that girl into doing this, or whatever. So they were always making challenges with each other. So it just so happens that he ended up running into somebody who was named Natalia, and she of course was at a ball, and she was out. They were all dancing, and she wasn't too, she was kind of feisty herself. She wasn't, she was like, oh, because she heard of him. And she kind of like knew his background. And she goes, oh, yeah, I would like to see him try it out on me. He would never get away with it, and blah, blah, blah. So, and Jonathan goes, oh, I bet you can't get her, And he goes, oh, you want to make a bet? So they ended up making a wager. And before long, he ends up meeting her, and they end up getting close, and to the point where it was like there was half truths and half lies. Like when they first started being with each other, he didn't think he was going to like her that much, and then it ended up that he did like her, and then she was the same way. She was kind of like, no, he's not going to get away with it with me. I'd like to see him try, but then she ended up liking him as well. So then the relationship between the both of them started growing heartfelt instead of them trying to outdo one another. Of course, they ended up falling in love, and but it was like a give and take kind of love. And if you ever want to, just look it up on, it's a free book. It's called Gambling on the Duke's Daughter. If you have a Kindle, you can read it for yourself, probably faster than me. And they finally had to have like a fasted marriage, because evidently he put her in a spot where the town, if you did something wrong, you would, like, the whole town knew about it. And it would shame her. So they had to get married in a quick way, and so they did end up marrying. She did find out that she had a dowry, and back in those days, they were the soldiers or whatever were always going after the women's dowry, because they're the ones that had all the money. It's just like when you go to the army or whatever, you don't have that much money, but if you ended up meeting somebody, from higher rank or whatever, a rich person, if you can get with that person, you would inherit all that was theirs. Well, that's how it was back in the day. But And then he, of course, told her that he wasn't after her dowry no more. And she's like, well, you can have it. I don't care. Blah, blah, you know. So they were like, you know, back and forth, back and forth. And then they ended up getting married, and he did take her to Albany, somewhere in Scotland. And he took her to her house, and of course he had inherited his father's an estate that was left to him that his father knew about but never told him. And then finally his father did let him know about it, and the one who disclosed it to him wasn't even his father, it was Michael, his brother, and said, well, you know, Dad's leaving you this estate. Because Dylan was falling on hard times. He was living on his own. He wasn't living with his father. Michael was, and he was having a hard time paying rent and things like that. That's why he was gambling all the time. So they ended up getting married and going to the estate that he had inherited. And there were these two people, they were called the McPhersons. And it just so happens that they found out the story about the mother, because the mother ended up killing herself. She threw herself off a cliff. But we couldn't find out who did the killing. How did she die, and how did she end up off that cliff? So apparently there were a lot of pictures, because the mother was a painter. She loved to paint. So she ended up painting a portrait of a young man and an older individual. So when Natalia saw these portraits, which Miss McPherson showed her, she noticed that, she goes, wow, how did she draw a picture of Dylan when he was, she was young when she died. And she realized that the picture of the older guy that was standing next to the little guy wasn't Dylan. It was Mr. McPherson. So the little boy was Dylan, and McPherson was his father. So apparently the mother ended up having an affair with Mr. McPherson. And Warren, the father of Dylan, which at the time, he was married to her, he got jealous. And they weren't really close to each other. It was like kind of like love and hate relationship. Like, she got married because she had to. Not that she really cared to be with him. But he got jealous nevertheless. And when she ended up going, or they were arguing at a cliff, and Dylan was small when he saw this, and he saw Warren push the mother off the cliff. So, and Natalia had found out all about this, and she knew about it, and he was with Mr. McPherson at a tavern, and they were talking about it, bringing all this up, and I didn't want to tell you, but I thought it was time, and blah, blah, blah. So then when he went back to Natalia, he said, you know what, you got to go. You got to go, things are not going to work out. And because she wanted to tell him, look, I know about your past. I know about your mother. I know about Mr. McPherson. I know he's your dad. I don't care, because, when you have a title, it means a lot. But when you don't have a title anymore, it's like you're marrying lower than what you should have. And he's like, no, it's not going to work. You can go back home to your dad, and you can keep your dowry and live however you want. And then she was getting mad because she was like, no, we're married, and you're just not going to, just throw me back home. What about if I end up pregnant? Are you going to be a father and take care of our son if something were to happen? And he's like, yeah, I'll take care of everything, but you need to go. And she's like, no, it's not fair. How dare you? She was really mad. So he ended up storming out. And so he ended up storming out, and it was the morning. He was standing out by the cliff, where his mother had died. And Natalia was, oh my God, he's going to commit suicide. So she runs, off there to him. And it's like, she's really skittish, like, oh God, how can I get near him and not push him over and not scare him and he'll fall off the cliff and that'll be the end of that. So she slowly, went up to him. She was still in her, her nightgown. She had never changed. She just ran out that morning and went to him. And he turned around and he goes, what are you doing out here? And he's like, it's cold out here. You're going to get sick. And blah, blah, blah. So she ended up telling him, what she knew. And she was like, oh, and he goes, oh, well, then you know the whole story. And she's like, yes, I know what happened. She knew about the father, but she didn't know that Mr. Warren was the one that killed the mom. So that's what happened. So it was the jealous husband who did it. Not that she committed suicide because she was, depressed or didn't want to live anymore, because he said she wasn't like that. That's what Mr. McPherson, the one that she had the affair of, told him, your mom was full of life. She loved to paint. She was happy. She was happy here. So, of course, the McPhersons were the biological parents of Dylan. So, in short, they finally found out the truth, and then they were very happy, and they decided to stay together. And then Natalia was like, that question you asked me about wanting to have children. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, well, she goes, well, I want to have a lot of them. I want to have 8 of them, she said, which I found kind of cute. Yeah, right. But, that's where, and then they lived happily ever after in Scotland. And at the estate that Dylan inherited. So that was the end. But they had, like I said, these books usually these days, they all have multiple, series, like book 1, book 2, book 3. So they were talking about what happened to Michael and what happened to the Warren, and because they were talking about that he has to pay for what he did for killing my mom, and he wanted to go back, to London and do something. Because no, you can't do that, because you'll look at everything that you have now, and you want to ruin everything you have now to go to just to get even or to end up in jail. She said no. So he said, you're right, so we're not going to do that. But then, and that was that. So that whole situation, they left it there. But they didn't say what happened to Michael. They didn't say. But they did say, oh, if you want to know more about if Michael was going to marry Emma, because she was an heiress, because she was another one that had a dowry, then you have to read this book to find out whether or not, Michael married Emma, and to see what happened to Warren, to see if he got arrested for what he did. But you would have to read that book to find out. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Plus it was $4.99. I know. I'm not going to do it. I'm Miss Ochipo. No. Yes, I am. Anyway, I am reading a new book on the Kindle, and this one is called The Hobby Shop on Barnaby. The Hobby Shop on Barnaby Street. So that's what it's called, and it's about it's going to deal in the era of World War II history, and of course it's a romance, because I like romances. I'm not too much into drama. I'm not into thriller or the who did it, or serial killers. I mean, I'm not really into that. I am more into the romance part. So that's the book I'm going to be reading now. So I'll probably start on chapter 1 probably tonight, And I'll try to read this one a little bit more faster, but I have to admit the books on the Kindle are not as lengthy as you would a regular book, you know, a tangible book. Some are thicker than others, and some are, you know, smaller than others, but the tangible books have a little bit more bulk to them. So, but I noticed that the ones on the Kindle don't. I noticed that Nora Roberts she's still out there. I'm surprised. I was like, there was a lot of Danielle Steele, which I don't know, did she pass away? I'm not even sure. But she had a lot of books that came out in her time. But Nora Roberts, she's still publishing out there. So I found that fascinating. But okay, let me take a little bite of these. These are so good. They're kind of like little Mexican, like I always take them apart, like little Mexican treats. They're really good. I bought a whole box. I can eat the whole box. Like, I really can. But, yeah. I always want to pick a book. I think I bought one book of hers, but just like the Harlequin romance books, and they had a Harlequin Presents, they were all having the same thing. Everything led up to the same. You already knew what the outcome was going to be. How it's like nothing new, nothing different. You could already anticipate, oh, this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen, yeah, and you'd be right. You literally would be right. So, but at least, it was one book and not multiple books. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that I really didn't care for. Of what they're doing now, as to say. But anyway, okay, well that's it, and I'll try to get faster. I'll try to read faster so that my stories won't take 2 or 3 months to finish, and you can finally find out what happened at the end. So I'll try to read a little bit more faster. The next one you'll be hearing from is the Napoli in Love. That one is getting good. You know, I'm like, okay. I can't wait to find out what Venus and Jake and Serena. Yeah, Serena's a bad girl. But anyway, we'll see what happens. And if we'll ever find out who that little boy with the blonde hair, who does that little boy belong to? And that's where we're at. So, like a fish in the sea, so glad you caught me, and we will see you next time on Tea Time Tuesday. Bye. Up here.